tracking to play Sunday against the division rival Minnesota Vikings. Malik Willis stepped in and did exactly what he needed to do, what he had to do, and he led the Packers to 2 straight wins. But Jordan Love is healthier. He is on the timeline to return. We'll see if he can make it back in time for Sunday, but that would be a big boost to the Packers offense getting Love back on Sunday.
Yeah, credit to Malik Willis for sure. Adam, here's Jordan Love from moments ago.
Yeah, I think every day I was pushing myself a little bit harder, and at the end of the day, it's all feel things. Feeling my body, feeling if I'm pushing too much, and my body's kind of just listen to my body talking to me. And the workout pregame Sunday, I felt like I was moving around pretty well, and my body was responding well to it.
So whoever is at quarterback for the Packers will face a Vikings defense that has at least 5 sacks and 2 takeaways in each of their first 3 games of the season. That's tied with the 1970 Rams for the longest streak to begin a season since team sacks became official in 1963. It's like, welcome back, Jordan Love. Here you go. Yeah. You got to face this Vikings defense if he's able to play. Dan, you think the Packers need Love, though, against this Vikings D?
Yes, to win, but it's not because I would say it this way. You got to beat Matt LaFleur more than you got to beat Jordan Love right now. LaFleur's been fantastic. A lot of times the saying in football is like, man, they use their run to set up the pass. And I would say LaFleur's kind of the opposite. It's like he uses the pass to set up the run. And, for Minnesota, I've always said this year at least, like you better be good on first down playing against that defense. Because if you're not, then the blitz package comes. So I think the way that LaFleur is using the old school run techniques and so much for Minnesota's defense to look at, because as much as Minnesota's defense forces you to communicate, you have to communicate just as much when it comes to all their motions and all their formations. So I think that's going to be a big challenge. Early on in the game, they got into 4 strong and ran a fake toss and hit a quick play action. Then they get into that same 4 strong formation and it's toss. So as a defense, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to hesitate because last time I saw that formation, it's play action. There's that 4 strong, but with motion, and they hand it off to a wide receiver and Jaden Reed. They're going to make Minnesota communicate as much as Minnesota makes them.
I love that. And to your point, you mentioned as much as Minnesota's going to make them. And Matt LaFleur, and I think that's the challenge that Flores and his defense brings, because once the 15-second shot clock goes up and the quarterback can no longer communicate with the offensive coordinator and LaFleur, that's when Flores gives you all the looks. So we've seen it. We talked about it last week, the pre-snap movement. To your point, they're going to have to communicate because LaFleur's drawing up this offense, and like you just showed that first play of the game, fakes the toss and comes back.
Right.
When Malik Willis or Jordan Love, when they're under center, they have no idea who's dropping back into that window to be able to hit that crossing route. And I think that's the challenge. Jordan Love, an experienced guy, Malik Willis still gaining that experience every week within this offense.
It's going to be like
challenging if he's out there.
It's going to be what unit makes the other one play with more confusion.
Yes.
Because they both, that's at the foundation of both of them.
Yeah, and I actually think the pressure is going to be on Flores.
Yeah.
I pulled up the tape from a year ago when Love was out there, and this is why Love being out there is important. I think this will be a very tall and daunting task for Malik Willis. But Jordan Love in that second game against the Vikings, they blitzed him 25 times, Flores did. He was 70% on those. They used pre-snap motion as identifiers. They made him show his hand. And Jordan Love was so decisive this entire game. It's like he knew exactly where the pressure was coming from. Now, obviously, it will be a different a different group. They'll have a different set of plays. They'll understand that things are going to be changed up a little bit. But Jordan Love being out there and having the confidence to know that he has the answers to the test, even when they didn't use pre-snap motion, to watch how decisive he was in using the flat routes, getting it to his running backs, and really put the Vikings on their heels and made it easy for the rest of the game.
I would.
Okay, so I really want to talk about this. Right, the main question is do the Packers need Jordan Love versus the Vikings? And I look at this in a few different ways. I would say this: unless Sam Darnold really has just a really bad game or turns into a pumpkin. Apparently, some of the other shows are putting him on pumpkin watch because they think that what he's been doing with the Minnesota Vikings is more fool's gold and that he'll eventually just, that bubble will just pop. Unless that happens, if you're just continuing to get the great games from that offense that the Minnesota Vikings have been able to bring, I think this game would be very, very difficult to win with Malik Willis, unless Malik Willis is either continuing to just be on a hot streak, right? And it's just kind of like the way how the trend is working, the law of averages, where it's like, yeah, we're just getting 3-4 amazing games from this backup quarterback, but actually his bubble will eventually pop. Or Malik Willis proves to actually just be a legitimate quarterback in the NFL, right? That Matt LaFleur has really turned Malik Willis into a bona fide, full-on quarterback who's more than capable of executing an offense. And that's technically possible as well, right? We've seen that happen before, where Baker Mayfield was hanging on by a thread. He goes to Sean McVay, boom, gets new life, and now he's a starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's definitely a possibility for Malik Willis. But if Malik Willis is just actually a backup quarterback that Matt LaFleur and this Packers team are just doing their best with, I feel like the only way that they could beat the Vikings is if Sam Darnold just has a bad game, which is, again, possible for any quarterback, of course, or Sam Darnold really does just come back down to earth and it's been fool's gold. And so it's not like he just has a bad game. It's just he just plays who he is typically more often than not. But with Jordan Love, that obviously changes everything, right? You guys all know this, that I think Jordan Love is an absolute top quarterback in the NFL. And it's a shame because we saw what that was looking like at the end of last season and even in the playoffs. And we got a glimpse of it week 1 versus the Eagles, but not fully. It was a weird game, tough game. I've talked about extensively, but still a lot of exciting stuff that we saw out of Jordan Love. And then obviously he's injured. And I feel like it's already like that we still now go into the season, still have question marks of like, what is Jordan Love going to look like right now? Just because we don't know, because it's the beginning. It's the beginning of the season for him, number one, and number two, he is recovering from an injury. So it's like it is a question mark. And to be clear, I'm not saying that I think he's going to be bad or that he's not going to be a top quarterback in the NFL, but it still is technically a question mark because we don't know. We haven't really seen it, and it's really always hard to gauge a quarterback or really any game, any team, any player on week 1. It's just week 1. It's the first game. There's rust, there's confusion. It's just different. You can pretty much throw away the week 1 for every single team, from my viewpoint. So it's just hard, especially because this defense now is going to be significantly better than whatever the Eagles were able to throw week 1 as well. But not to mention, this is going to be, if he does play versus the Vikings, it's Jordan Love's first game playing after being injured, where and you heard him say this, where he has to listen to his body. And that's the problem. When you're injured and you're recovering from an injury, you're hyper aware of your body, right? You're really focused on your body. Even when he comes off the sideline, right? Even if he is now playing, one of the first questions he's probably going to be asked is, how's your knee feel? How do you feel, right? And that's not what it typically is when you're not injured or when you're not recovering from an injury. It's just like, hey, this is what the defense did. This is what we did. You're already just thinking about the next drive or whatever the conversations that need to be had in that moment. But instead, it's going to be people who are like, your knee feel good? You feel good? You feel strong? It's just like, everything feel okay? And he's going to be like, yeah, it feels good. It's a little sore. It's a little this. It's just extra stuff that you kind of have to process. And again, when you're recovering from an injury, you're just hyper aware of every ache, every pain, every feeling of soreness. You're like, is this okay? Is this not okay? It felt better before and now it feels a little off, but that's normal. Because there's so many times, especially when you're recovering from an injury, you go see a doctor, a physical therapist, and you're like, yeah, I'm feeling this. And they're like, yeah, that's totally normal. That's to be expected. You're going to have that. You're going to have swelling. You're going to have soreness. You're going to have this pain. Yeah. And one of the most encouraging things you hear a doctor say is like, yeah, that's all normal. You're not hurting it more. It's just, this is just a recovery process. And again, even no matter how many times you go through it, which myself, I've gone through, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, it's still something that just needs to kind of be reminded. So that alone already puts Jordan Love it just makes the game harder for him, right? It's not, again, to be clear, it's not to say that he can't succeed. It's not to say that he won't succeed. It's not to say that the Packers won't win this game. It's just extra stuff stacked on deck that I just want to highlight. So to me, rather than ask the question, and I talk a lot about this, the whole idea, do the Packers need Jordan Love versus the Vikings? I think the better question is, if Jordan Love plays, do they need the win, right? Because they've now won these last 2 games. And it's funny because a lot of people are questioning how great are the Packers. And I've been praising the Packers and singing their praises, saying that they're a top team in the NFL. And a lot of people are like, well, they beat bad teams, right? They beat bad teams. And so why is that so impressive? And it's like, because one, the way they're beating them, the way they're playing, Matt LaFleur's coaching, the way how the team stepped up, and yeah, with the backup quarterback, even beating a bad team with a backup quarterback is still very impressive. And not to mention, it's the way in which they're doing it. Sometimes you beat a bad team and it's very obvious that that team is bad, and that's why you're beating them, right? It's missed tackles, it's, inability to get pressure to the quarterback, whatever it may be. It's very obvious that this other team is just taking advantage of how bad this other team is. And there was a degree of that, obviously, of course, with the Packers, but it was also just what the Packers were doing, that no matter who they were playing, they were going to be successful in that moment, right? It was just the game plan, the plan of attack, and that's kind of what Orlovsky was. He wasn't saying this directly, but he was just kind of bringing up the way how Matt LaFleur runs his offense, how he uses the pass to set up the run, and it was just like, it doesn't matter whether it was the Texans, the Colts, or whoever. It's the execution of it all, which to me shows. Because you're right. That's why, perfect example, when I saw the Cowboys play the Browns, I was like, they're clearly taking advantage of the inefficiencies and the lack of talent of Cleveland Browns right now. And I was seeing a lot of mistakes that the Cowboys were making, and yet they still... Right, like I wasn't seeing high quality play, even though they were winning, even though they put up numbers, even though that defense made Deshaun Watson look lost. Like, it was still very clear to me, like, this to me doesn't look like a great team beating a bad team. This is a team, probably a good team, an okay team beating a bad team, and that's what this looks like. That's not what I saw with Green Bay. That's the difference. So that's what makes me so high on them, and so it's going to be exciting. I unfortunately, since it will be Jordan Love's first game versus the Vikings, I don't know how much we could come away with this, right? Let's say they lose pretty good, the Packers, right? It's 24-10, and it's Jordan Love's first game, or Jordan Love doesn't even play. There's no strong takeaways from this, because I do think the Vikings are a great team right now, and they're really rolling. They have a ton of momentum. And the truth is that if the Vikings end up winning that game, I wouldn't be like, oh, clearly the Packers aren't good enough, right? It's just like, we have to see the Packers actually get in their own rhythm with Jordan Love being full strength, being fully healthy, and that's what I need to see. But so for me, one of the real takeaways, and I'm looking, one of the things that when I watch this game, it's not so much win or lose, it's just how do the Packers continue to play? Do they play in a way that shows that they still belong to be considered a top team in the NFL? If Jordan Love plays, how does he look? Is he clearly comfortable? Is he clearly recovered, or is he clearly not fully recovered, but he's just doing his best, right? He's 85%. The doctor said, you can play. You're not going to hurt it anymore. Get out there. Because if he is like that, if he's slightly, not looking 100% like the Jordan Love that we know, right? There's some of those comments that we hear. Normally, Jordan Love would be able to escape that, but he's definitely a little bit slower right now, right? Like, those are the things that I would kind of be looking for. And it's not to say that if that does happen, that means he's just going to stay there now and he's not going to be able to kind of, continue to progress week to week. But it is just something for me that that I'll be looking out for. But I've been waiting for these divisional games. For this division, I've been waiting for months. I keep calling this division a gauntlet, right? With the Lions, the Vikings, the Bears, the Packers, and it's just like now we got the Vikings and the Packers. I'm so excited for this game at Lambeau. And no matter who's the quarterback, no matter how healthy or not healthy Jordan Love is, either way, it should be a very intense environment, very physical, very tough, important game. Vikings obviously want to keep rolling, go 4-0. Packers certainly don't want to be 2-2, and if they win, they now are 3-1, and now they're tied for leading the division, right? Like, it's just, or they would probably actually technically be leading the division since they just, have the better divisional record at that point. So yeah, at this point now, these games start to matter more and more, but I wouldn't be myself if I didn't emphasize that even if the Packers end up losing this game, considering the circumstances, normally under normal circumstances, I would say I just need to see the Packers look like, or any of these teams, quite frankly, look like that they're in the game, that they have the chance to win. To me, none of these games are ever must win, but they just have to look like, yeah, you know what, if they play again, the other team can win. So I don't need to see a win, but especially in this situation now, even if they got beat pretty good, I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, man, the Packers are just clearly not good enough, and you know they just don't have it this year. It's just the circumstances are too specific for me. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Green Bay Packers versus the Vikings? Do you think they need Jordan Love to win versus the Vikings? And if Jordan Love plays, you know, will there be strong takeaways from this, right? Like, do you think there's a lot of pressure for the Packers to perform? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.